Shabbos Parshas Behar. As we head towards Har Sinai, as we head towards Shavuos and Matan Torah, we hear about a mitzvah that was given at Har Sinai. And truth be told, we got 613 mitzvahs plus at Har Sinai, all the 613 shoroshim, but then there's all the toldas of every single mitzvah. How many mitzvahs do we have? Now we have deraises, there are abundance, there are thousands. Baruch Hashem, you imagine how many ways there are for us to be able to connect to Hashem, to be able to relate to Him. Hashem gives us these so that we could have a sense of relationship. That's what I'm going to introduce to the world. One of the mitzvahs was Shemitah. Maybe the Torah Dafka points out that Shemitah was given at Bahar to remind us. Mitzvah, this is Shabbos Alag Emor, don't forget where you're heading. The whole point of Sfira is that anticipation, we can't wait for it. Every day is like another, I want the Torah. Hey, that's what Klal Yisrael did on the way to the original Har Sinai. The mitzvah of Shemitah is fascinating. Amongst the other mitzvahs of Eretz Yisrael, it's unique to Eretz Yisrael. And if you look at the Lashon, Hashem says that when you come into Eretz Yisrael, Asher ani nosein lochem. When you come to the land, El Aretz, that I am giving to you, V'shav Sa'aretz. Start keeping Shemitah. And so I saw the Nesiv Shalom brings down, he says, 1 second, Kedushas Levi says, we don't start keeping Shemitah the second we came into Eretz Yisrael. It took us, it's a 7-year process. After 6 years, then you have Shemitah. Elamai, it's Pasha Pshat, that every one of the 6 years is a chelik of mitzvah shvius. It's true, we're not zeichet to see the Mesiras Nefesh of the farmers, but we are the same way. The 49 days of Sfira are a chelik of Matan Torah. It's the anticipation. It's like the Hasidim emphasize the hachanos. So too, the 6 years of Shemitah are hachanos for Shabbat, for the Shabbos. It's for Shemitah, for the 7th year, not just the 7th day. Of course, we have the 7th of the 7th, which is our Yovel. If you look at the way the Rebbeinu Shalom describes Eretz Yisrael, it's Haaretz Asher ani nosein lochem. It's the land that not I gave to you, not that I will give to you, it's that I am giving to you. It's a present and active nesina. Every moment that we are zeichet to be in Eretz Yisrael is a matana. It's a nesina from Hashem. And it's a brilliant thing we have to appreciate it. Last month of Shabbos, we had the Yortzeit of the Abloner Rebbe. I never heard of him before. Apparently, he was just discovered 5 years ago. His English name was George Nagel, which is unique for Rebbes, and he had a very unique story for a Rebbe. He was in Yablon, and he was the young Rebbe over there, and he brought an entire group of Hasidim to Eretz Yisrael. In those days, it was still called Palestine, but it's always been and always will be Eretz Yisrael. And in 1925, he started Kvar Hasidim. And they bought 10,000 acres of land. They bought a wealthy businessman. It was a beautiful infrastructure. Of Cook came, and the Sephardi chief rabbi, they were all there. And it was a mamish Erev Simcha. Within a year, the community, just the whole project collapsed onto itself. The Arabs brought dead animals and put it in their water supply. And there was a breakout of malaria, flooding, mosquitoes. The Arabs were killing people. It was awful, and the money ran dry. He went to America to collect, desperate, and he had a whole nother group that was supposed to come in a year later, and he needed to have money and land and things to be able to settle them, and he had nothing. And they made a deal with him. They have to send back all the elderly and the children because they don't produce as much as the middle age, and these people didn't know anything about agriculture. They were tailors and stuff. They weren't farmers, and he made whatever deal they needed to get the money. Came back, and when the next group came, the money was gone already, and they were calling him a liar and a crook, and he was everything was falling apart in front of him, and he didn't feel like a Rebbe anymore. He went back to America to collect, and while he was there, the war broke out, and he hears 700,000 Jews were killed. The numbers are staggering, and he couldn't bring himself to go back. He says they think I'm a liar or a crook, they don't need me, and he mamish went off the derech, shaved off his beard, stopped keeping Torah mitzvahs, and he changed his name. And mamish lived decades. He worked at construction, building houses. He went to college when he was 80. He was a sort of a loner, 80 years old, in college, hanging out with other college students, had his own little room, and he was just living, just living. And a total hashgacha pratis, an old friend from Shtetl bumped into him and says, George, you're not George, you're the Rebbe, you're the Yablonska Rebbe. And he says, how are you? It's good. And he says, why don't you come to Tish? He says, I don't do this anymore. He says, come to Tish. You should hear him speak. There's an interview with him. It's amazing. He had like a real accent. So he ended up convincing him to come to Tish Friday night. You can't imagine Hashgacha Pratis to this. Listen to this. We're talking about someone who, he loves Eretz Yisrael. That's why I tied it into the Yishuv Eretz Yisrael with Shemitah. And at the Tish, there's someone sitting across from him, and he starts kvetching about the Tish. He said, you call this a Tish? I remember back in the day, I was at a real Tish with the Ablonska Rebbe. He says, they were singing, there was food, it was Simcha, this is no Tish. And this guy runs out, and he doesn't have that he's busy screaming right in front of the Rebbe. That's a real twist. Like, there are people walking around on this planet who remember my Tish. And they're like nostalgic about my Tish. And I'm hiding from these people. This friend who got him to come to the Tish mentioned the idea of maybe going back to Eretz Yisrael years later. He says, go back, there's an entire city of people that you left there and you disappeared. Like you went to America and poof. They really care about you. They're curious. They're like, no, they're gonna call me a thief and a crook. He said, come, trust me. And after months, he finally convinced. And he got on a boat and he showed up in Kfar Hasidim, shaking in his boots. Who knows what these people think of him? He walks in there and people were crying. They were hugging him. Rebbe, welcome back. We missed you. We needed you, Rebbe. Where have you been? And they were saying, thank you. If you hadn't brought us to Eretz Yisrael, we would have been in Europe in the Holocaust. And they were crying, saying, Rebbe, where'd you go? Please come back, Rebbe, we need you. In those few hours, in that room, he went from George Nagel to the Oblonska Rebbe. He walked out of there giving them brachas. He grew back his beard. He moved to Eretz Yisrael. And for the rest of his life, from his mid-80s, he had a Vichas Yom in Baruch Hashem, and he was back to being a Rebbe. You can imagine, like it's never too late for tshuva. And you know what? Someone who was moiser nefesh, mamish moiser nefesh to live in Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael brought him back. You have to understand that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm giving you Eretz Yisrael, it means that right now in 2024, not just when there are missiles flying overhead, and not just when we're fighting, and not just when it's in the news. Every moment that a Yid is zeichet to have Eretz Yisrael in his life, you could watch the Kotel Cam on Aish.com. Like you understand. It's a matana. Hashem says, realize that I'm giving you this land. It's a constant giving. And Memela, we do whatever we can to give back. We have Shemitah. We learn Hilchas Shemitah. It doesn't have to be the 7th year to do that. Every say Divrei Torah about it on the Parsha. Have a wonderful, beautiful, beautiful Shabbos.